Today, our beautiful guest is Nisha. She is a single mom with two beautiful grown kids. One is almost 22, the other one 25 years old. And Nisha's story has really touched my heart in so many ways. In her own words, as I did some study and talking to her and reading her bio, she's always growing and she's always learning. Nisha's story has touched my heart in a way that today she's here to share it publicly. Something about meditation that played a huge role, not only in her son's Justin's life, but also for her as a mother who's a caregiver to a high functioning autism child. So we are here to thank you, Nisha. Thank you so much again for volunteering and being so humble to want to share your story. You've had a lot of twists throughout your career. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how did this whole thing with meditation took place?
First of all, Fernaz, thanks for doing this with me. I really appreciate being able to share my story with your viewers. So my story, I guess professionally, my story started as I was a biomedical engineer. And while I liked engineering, I didn't love it. And so when my son was born, and by the way, he's almost 25 now.
Wow.
So when he was born, I decided to leave engineering and be a stay-at-home mom. So I was home with him, and then my second one came along, my daughter, who is 22. And when she started preschool, I decided I wanted to go back to work, but I didn't want to go back to engineering. So I decided to follow a passion of mine, which was baking. And I went to culinary school. I became a pastry chef, started specializing in chocolate, became a chocolatier. And then in 2008, I opened a restaurant in downtown DC, in Washington, DC, called Coco Sala. It was a chocolate themed restaurant. I had that for 10 years. It was a true labor of love. I loved it. I was getting to live out my dream. But, you know, with any business, there's always ups and downs. Even though you love what you're doing, there is still stress in our lives. And, you know, it was during that time that I learned meditation, not for myself, but for my son. And, you know, that was about almost a decade ago. And that experience led me to where I am today, which is I'm a meditation teacher and I'm a mindful life coach.
Wow, that's a big twist, right? From, restaurant owner to your engineering background and now doing meditation. So what changes did you notice when you started doing meditation for yourself and with Justin?
Yeah, so Justin is on the autism spectrum, as you mentioned. He has high functioning autism. They keep changing the name. It used to be called Asperger's syndrome, then it was high functioning autism, and actually now I think it's autism 1. I'm not even sure what the actual label is, but basically, back then he was around 16 years old. And back then, you know, meditation wasn't as popular or mainstream as it is now. And I came across an article that showed that meditation was helping kids on the spectrum. So I started doing some research. And because Justin, he's a very logical thinker and he loves science. So I knew I would have to gather all the data to show to him, to prove it to him that this could help. Otherwise, he would have been like, Mom, you're just crazy. Forget about it. So I started doing research and I came across, at that time, transcendental meditation had the most research behind it. So, so I showed him the data, I showed him different videos, and he was convinced. He's like, okay. And I knew that, like with everything, I felt like I needed to learn it first before he could learn it, so that I could understand what he was going through in the process. And this was in the middle of having, you know, a very busy restaurant, a very full schedule. And so I learned how to meditate. And within a few days, I felt this calm that I had never experienced before. I didn't realize that how stressed out I was until I actually started meditating. Um, and then Justin learned how to meditate after I did. And he learned during the summer. So he was in high school, he learned during the summer, and it was really quite profound for him. You know, everybody's experience is different, but for him, when he went back to school in the fall, his teachers even asked me, they're like, is he on some new medication? Because he just seems so much more calm, more focused. And the really interesting thing, what we saw with him, which we didn't expect, was, I don't know how familiar you are with you know, high functioning autism, where it's they have a hard time connecting with others and reading social cues. And so for Justin, even though he showed empathy towards his family members, he never really showed it towards anybody else. And what we saw with the meditation was he was actually showing empathy towards his peers.
Wow.
And that was really amazing. So for him, those were some of the things that we saw in him. For myself, I found, I didn't expect this. I found I started procrastinating less. I was sleeping better. I felt more focused. And also it became a tool for me to use, not just in the mornings, but also throughout my day. Whenever I felt like I needed like a little recharge or a little boost, you know, that's how meditation became for me. And since then, I've meditated every day, twice a day. My practice is twice a day, and it's just part of who I am now.
Yeah, meditation, it's I started when we first talked, when you told me
Right.
about it, I started just
Mm-hmm.
doing it. It's just really simple facts of breath work and being aware of what's going on with your body. But it's just definitely has made a change into my sleep, and when I know I need it, I'll do it. So no, these are great information. I'm glad that you were able to also do your research for your son. As we know, the new generation, and really just don't take our word for it, even though we're their parents. They want to know facts. So I'm,
Exactly.
I'm glad that you were able to do that with him, and he was willing to do it. So good, really good way of putting it. Thank you so much. And I guess I'll go into my next question. So how is meditation experience different for the people on the spectrum?
So one of the things which, you know, when I coach parents of children who are on the spectrum is I let them know that don't expect their child's experience to be the same as yours. One of the things which I tell people to look out for, especially if parents of kids on the spectrum, is they may, even though they may not look like they're meditating, because they may not necessarily be sitting still, they may be moving around. If they have tics, they may start to even show those tics. It doesn't mean that they're not meditating. So a lot of times, parents will think that they're just sitting, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? And there is no supposed to in meditation. But that's one of the things to kind of look out for, just to kind of be aware that they may not be sitting perfectly still. Even as adults, we can't always sit perfectly still, right? And that's totally fine.
Just kind of be comfortable, and you could be laying down, you could be just finding a position that you're most comfortable with, pretty much.
Yeah, they should be in a comfortable position. I don't recommend laying down, because then you do tend to fall asleep, especially if you're not in the beginning, if you're just learning how to meditate.
Got it.
It's best to be sitting upright. But what I tell people is sit with your back supported. Like you said, be comfortable, right? It doesn't have to be that you have to be sitting cross-legged in a particular lotus position, on the floor. Because what happens is, especially when you're new, is then the mind goes to the back, and the whole time you're thinking like, my back is killing me, I need
Right.
to get up and move around, right? So that's one of the things that I suggest. And there are different styles of meditation out there. The technique that I teach at Mindtreat is really a technique that can be done anywhere. I mean, I can sit in my car, not driving, but I can sit in my car and meditate. And that's something which with Justin and I, my son and I, we used to do is, especially when he was younger, is if we were like on our way to an activity or if we reached somewhere early, we would sit in the parking lot and we would just meditate together. In
Wow.
fact, I remember there were a few times when he was in college, and I was fortunate that he was local. So there were a few times where he actually, in between classes, did have a panic attack, and he would call me, and I would go there, and he knew what to do. He would come to my car. We would just sit in the parking lot in the car. He would meditate, and we would talk a little. Then we would talk a little bit about what was going on, and then he was fine, and he was able to like move on to his. To usually what happened before a test. So then he was able to move on to his test.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I'm glad this worked out. Obviously, like you said, not every child is going to be the same, and their situation. Because as you know, my side of family, both sides have the autism on both ends, and I did a lot of fundraisers for that. So I'm definitely in that. I understand it's not easy, especially for the parents. As you mentioned, it cannot be an easy process, but you made it through. I'm just so happy. So what would be something encouraging that you could talk to the parents as what you experienced with your son?
Yeah, the main thing is don't forget about yourself. Don't forget to take care of yourself. And one thing which I do recommend is learn how to meditate for yourself, because when you can normalize it for your child, then they will be more likely to do it. The other thing is you can't force anybody to meditate, right? And sometimes we want things, our intentions are pure, our intentions are love-based, but we want it so badly. But we have to understand that everybody has their own time and place. And if you can work with a meditation teacher or a coach that can help you and your child understand that this is a tool which once you learn it, you have it for life. It's not like you lose it, you forget how to do it. There's no such thing as that. So that's one of the reasons why I love to teach meditation to young adults or older teenagers, is because this is something which once they've learned the technique, they're set. And then whether they decide to continue it on a regular basis, or whether they decide that maybe a few years from now, in fact, that's what happened with my daughter. She learned the technique, she didn't continue it, but then later on in life, she picked it back up again.
Nice, nice. So,
Yeah.
for all the stuff that you've been through and all the twists and turns and learning meditation, if you had to give our audience one encouraging piece of advice or one encouraging word as a mom, what would that be?
Yeah, remember to fill your cup first. I mean, we, especially as moms or as dads, as caregivers, we forget that it's okay to take care of ourselves first. We feel this sense of self-sacrifice, and maybe it's society, maybe it's culture that we grow up this way. But really, if you don't fill your cup, how can you give to others, right? And so it's so important to take care of yourself first. And if you need support, ask for support. There's nothing wrong with it. We all try to, just like suck it up and just get through it. And we tell ourselves that no, we'll be okay. But that's part of being human, is we all need each other. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Perfectly said.
But
Perfectly said, because as parents or caregivers, we think we're strong and we just keep pushing forward and we're there to help, but then we somehow forget ourselves. And like what you said it perfectly. Couldn't be any better way of explaining it to the audience. So Nisha, there was a lot said about meditation. I know for some people that may have a religious background, meditation may not be something that they would feel that they want to do, because how am I meditating, who I'm meditating to? And I just want to add that to the audience, that when I did that with Nisha, I think she remembers, in my own words, when I did meditate, I prayed during the time I was meditating, and I'm a Christ follower, so I would just meditate and ask God to help me through the process, and I would do the breathing in and out and all the process that Nisha was teaching me. So there's nothing wrong with that. You can, whatever you believe in, but meditation in general, I just think it's good for our bodies and our soul, and be able to calm our spirit for everyone around us. I think that's the whole goal for meditation. So I didn't want to forget that, as there are some people out there that just don't want to meditate for that reason, because after
Yeah,
I did.
yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up too, because a lot of people think, my background is Indian. A lot of people think that I became meditation teacher and I learned how to meditate. I grew up with it. I didn't know anything about meditation. I learned much later in life. And meditation at its very base is really just a stress reduction technique. And what's amazing is now we have the technology, that we have the science, we have the research that shows all the things that we've known for centuries, all the benefits. We can actually prove it now. It's really not at all denominational. There's no specific religion that is associated with it. At its very base, it is just that stress reduction technique, but it can be very spiritual if you want it to be. So one of the things I love to do with my clients is I meet them wherever they are at, and on that spiritual or religious spectrum. And I've worked with atheists, and I've worked with people who consider themselves to be highly religious. And so there is no person, I believe there is no person that would not benefit from meditation.
Thank you so much for clearing that. I'm glad I thought of it, because I know all of us are different, on different journey. There's nothing wrong with anyone's journey. So we're all here connected to help each other out. So, but once again, thank you so much, Nisha, for taking the time to be here and sharing your story with, our audience. And just definitely, if someone hears this and say, oh my God, I want to join, I want to find out more about this story, I want to know more about meditation, how would they get in contact with you?
Sure. So I, after I closed my restaurant, I formed Mindtree. And before the pandemic, I was meeting people in person for sessions like we met, Fernaz.
Yes.
But now, since the pandemic, everything has become virtual. So all of my sessions are virtual, which is amazing because I get to work with people all over the world now and teach them meditation, and also guide them and coach them on how to live mindfully. So I can be reached. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Mindtreat. That's MYNDTREAT. I think I have it there in my name there for the Zoom. And also they can check out my website. There's a lot of information there at mindtreat.com. And all of my services are there. I also have like a complimentary discovery call. I always tell people I'm not a salesperson at all. So please know that if you book that call, it is called a discovery call, but it does not mean sales pitch at all. If I can serve someone, even just for that short period of time, more than happy to do that.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you again so much for your service. Thank you for doing everything that you do. It's great, and love your spirit and your calm nature, and you're very kind. So for our audience, thank you so much for watching. As always, please don't forget to subscribe. I will put all the information for Nisha out there. If anyone is interested to get a hold of her, can get a hold of her, you're welcome to contact me, and I will get you in touch and connected with Nisha. If you have anyone that has encouraging, uplifting, kind, any kind of a story that would encourage our audience, feel free to send them over my way. And as always, thank you so much for all your love and support. Have a great day, Nisha. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, Fernaz. I love you.
I love you too. Take care. Bye.
Bye.